Good afternoon, friends and whānau. As Chairman of the Taumarunui Residents and Ratepayers Association, I welcome you to this very special community event. I am honoured to introduce our guest speaker today, a man that really needs no introduction, but I'll try my best to do him proud. Former teacher, barrister and solicitor in his own law practice, Right Honourable Winston Peters showed his leadership abilities from an early age, captaining the Auckland Maori rugby team. He went on to set up the New Zealand First Party in 1993. He has since been Deputy Prime Minister and Treasurer and Minister of Foreign Affairs. He is well known for his wine box victory, which was an inquiry undertaken to investigate claims of corruption and incompetence in the Serious Fraud Office and Inland Revenue Department. It was called that because Mr. Peters brought the documents at the centre of the allegations to Parliament in a wine box. Our hope is that today he will start to fill a new wine box with evidence pertaining to the Lions Company to give much needed relief to the people of King Country. Perhaps this time in a TLC marked power box. So it gives me great pleasure, it's a great honour for me to give you an icon in New Zealand politics. I give you Right Honourable Winston Peters.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. Can I thank also the school that put on that very gracious welcome. You're very, very kind of you to do that. It's the last thing I expected. You think you might have thought I was Hon Winston coming down here. I have with me today Rob Stevenson, who is New Zealand First candidate in Rangitikei for this election. Farmer, a former fixed-wing pilot, used to herd cattle on a fixed-wing engine, flying plane that is, out in the west of Australia, so it's a man of a serious experience. And he's with me, that's Rob there. And unlike the other parties, we actually do believe in the provinces, and we've got people who are practical as candidates, not bankers and all sorts of other professionals who profess to understand the countryside, but they wouldn't understand one end of the cow from the other. And they're full of them in Parliament today, and they're not listening to you on both sides of the House. It has been, Mr. Chairman, a most amazing week in politics. They say that 24 hours is a long time, 1 hour is a long time at the moment. And the Labour Party has got its 6th leader in 9 years.
Are you going to have any babies?
Now, the amazing thing about that, of course, is that that is a sexist comment. And it should have no bearing on the suitability of a candidate, regardless of that person's gender. But I am amazed at the media's unbelievable fawning on this occasion about someone who's the 6th leader. And the real essence of this is a real concern for the people of the Taumarunui and Rangitikei and indeed all this country is, but what does it signify when you've had these changes? And personally, I'm sick and tired of the media calling me up and asking me, how are you going to get along with somebody who's just been made the leader? Started with Gough, then it went on to Shearer, then on to a guy called Cunliffe, then on to a guy called Little, and now it's Jacinda. And the real issue is, at all these changes is the absolute assumption that we're still living under first past the post, and we're not. This campaign is a three-way fight between two parties that believe in the 1984 economic model of the 14th of July of that year, when a guy called Douglas got in, threw his manifesto in the rubbish bin and pulled out the secret agenda, and for 33 years we've been told that this is all good for you. Remember what the slogan was 3 years after the 84 election? We're coming into 87, and the slogan of the Labour Party back then was, you've had 3 years of pain, and now you're going to get 3 years of gain. Well, you've been waiting 30 years, haven't you? And it ain't coming. And it won't either, because they don't face up to the fact that you can't tweak and just massage the present economic plan. The plan is broken. And from Invercargill to Kaita, you can see all these people who are in the have-nots, and while there's an elite who have got extraordinarily wealthy. And one of the most wealthy would be your lines company. And whilst I'm at it, down here, in front of the residents and ratepayers, can you recall how this all started? Max Bradford. And guess who the Prime Minister was? Now, don't you feel slightly guilty about that? Come on, you remember what happened? Because, I take you back a bit further. Labor's in power. They've got a right-wing economic experiment. Never been tried like that, to that extent, anywhere in the whole darn world. And here it is, in New Zealand. And they started selling assets left, right and centre. The forestry companies, down here today, top 10 forestry companies in New Zealand, 8 foreign owned. Do you remember who did that? Well, I do, and I'm not going to forget it. So when they tell me, can you deal with the Labour Party, my question is, not unless you change. Not unless you reject that this economic experiment is not working, and not unless you stop telling people that if you only be patient, it'll somehow come right. It won't come right with your lines company. You can bet your bottom dollar about that. And our policy is very plain. We're going to go to the Commerce Commission, we're going to ask them to do their job properly, or we'll get new commissioners. And when that's finished, if we don't see power pricing across this country come down dramatically right across this country, then we're going to do something about it. We're going to start incorporating the power companies and amalgamating them again together. Like it was in the old days when we had the cheapest power in the whole world. Remember that? And then they got hold of it. Max Bradford said that we're going to have this reform, he said, because we want to plateau out the rising costs. Those were his very words. A plateau, you should know down here, is flat. Well, the plateau that he organised when it was all over, with power prices, was vertical. The prices went through the roof. And that wasn't bad enough. The National Party then sold the 49% off to foreigners. And when they said that, they said, nobody owns water, but you guys can. And today, in this country, I've got to tell my Maori relations here, we got one hell of a separatist apartheid battle going on, where now the iwi are saying, we own the water. And whilst I'm at it, the moment that happens, then you can imagine what will not get down to the ordinary Maori person. Oh sure, I know what will happen. They'll start off by saying we are acting on the part of Maori. But I can tell you, and I've watched it over the years as a long-time young lawyer before they even dreamt all this stuff up, acting for European and Maori landowners up north, that when this whole revolution came about, Treaty of Waitangi rights, one group never got anything. That's the ordinary Maori. Not one snapper, not one anchor, no nothing. And yet it's being made in their names, and we've got this huge separatism and division building in New Zealand, generated from the colour of right of the sale of power companies, where we were happy to say to foreigners, you can own 49% of a power company. And you can't run a power company unless you've got a thing called water. That's where it all started. And we've got an unholy mess coming now, and that's why we're campaigning flat out around this country, because we believe there's one party that in its name evinces what we stand for, and that is New Zealanders first, not last, on everything. We do not want the continuation of this massive sale or sell-off of New Zealand property, land, assets, houses and banks in the whole 100 yards. Now you remember Mr. Bolger? Jim Bolger? Well, you must remember that it was on the 1st of October 1992 when he flogged off the biggest bank in our country, the BNZ, that used to have 6 out of every 10 customers in banking was with the BNZ. And Jim Bolger flogged it off to the National Australia Bank. Do you remember that? Well then, the Labour Party later on came along and started a bank called Kiwi Bank. Do you remember that? And Helen Clark thought, well, I'll put the boot into the National Party. I'll make Jim Bolger the head of the board. You remember that? Come on, you do. Because I've gone up down here at Taumarunui, and I think your party are responsible for this. Because you used to vote for Jim Bolger big time, didn't you? Anyway, Jim gets to be the head of Kiwi Bank, and in his opening press conference, guess what he said? He said, "I've always thought that New Zealand people should own their own bank." Now, Mr. Chairman, I don't know about you, but I almost clapped when I heard that. Couldn't believe that someone could get away saying that. But it's never changed. Today, 95% of our banking is foreign-owned, and almost $4.5 billion every year gets sucked out of our country straight off to Australia. Every year. Now, if that's not bad enough, every policeman, every doctor, every nurse, every teacher down here in Taumarunui, when they get paid every fortnight or every month, has their payment clipped by way of commission by the Westpac Bank of Australia. How mad is that? Why isn't Kiwi Bank carrying these accounts, both locally and across the nation? We give us a chance on the 23rd of September, and we're going to move that account to Kiwi Bank, and we're going to ensure that we start clipping the ticket. Or as they say down here, we pay the money, we pluck the duck. Fair enough? You've got 50,000 people here in the King Country and Turangi who are paying an excessive amount for their electricity. And worse than that, at the very peak time when it's freezing, when you need peak power, they then put their charges up.
That's right.
So somehow, if you turn the power off and you freeze, then you can somehow avoid the cost. We want the cost to be at peak power, full supply, and where we've got an advantage against not just the rest of the country, but against the rest of the world. And we used to have that one time, when we owned the power companies. Before Max Bradford, another banker, came along and reformed the whole darn thing, and the mess has never changed. Second thing is, down there at Ruapehu, you've got a lifts company, right, on that mountain. Guess what they're paying? If they were down in Queenstown, that mountain, they'd be paying $1 million less. A whole $1 million less. So somebody's ripping you all off. Now, looking at you, this must be the sort of innermost branch of the Mother Teresa Society, because most of you are still smiling. You're being ripped off, ladies and gentlemen, but you have to do something about it. You're going to have to get enrolled. You have to get all those young people at the back enrolled, and you've got to make a statement come the 23rd of September that you're not taking any more of it, that you want change. We need you to do that. You know something about the amazing part about this country? It's that Treasury and the governments of the day have been conspiring in Wellington to tax you in every way they possibly can, and they give virtually nothing back. I'll give you an example. Right now, this year, overseas tourism is paying in GST alone $1.5 billion in tax. It's going straight to Wellington. How much is going back to you?
No.
To your council? To all the essential things you need here? The answer is, well, last year it was $12 million over 4 years. Remember that? $12 million over 4 years to pay for extra toilets needed from Mipakago to Kaitaia. Whilst they took $1.1 billion last year, now it's going to be 1.5, and give you nothing back at all. Then all of a sudden, they thought, crikey, election's coming up, we better do something. We'll give you $1.2 million over the next 4 years. And they're gloating about it. That's $1,400 million left that they're not giving back to you. I tell you what we're going to do. Every tourism dollar from an international tourist is going to go back to the region where it was paid in the first place, and with computerisation, they know down to the last dollar how it can be done. Now, when we made that statement, one of the National Party people came out and said, that's impossible. Now, ladies and gentlemen, lying is the best way of describing that, because if they know where the computerised money is coming from and computerised model now to say what regions are earning what in tax, then they'll know exactly where to give the money back to, won't they? And you can look at your newspapers. They boast about how tourism's going. How much was earned down in the Hawke's Bay, up north, down in Queenstown? If they know that figure down to the last dollar, then they can pay the last dollar back to you. But my point is, we've got a government and a National and Labour Party opposition that subscribes to the neoliberal economic model, and it doesn't work, but they keep on telling you it's good for you. Oh, and then of course you've got another party in there that believes work's not important. They're going to pay you whether you get up in the morning or not. You know that parties, don't you? Well, I wish they would hug the trees, but no, they don't not even better get up and prune the trees either. But the real point is, ladies and gentlemen, unless we make a change in this election, nothing's going to happen. And it has to happen now, because in my lifetime I have never seen such despair in my own country. I was brought up way up north when there was real poverty, when people like my parents started life in a tent, not a house, just a tent. And other people were knicker huts with floors of earth and soil. That's all they had. But back then, we had one thing that we never have had in the last 30 years. You know what it was? If you worked and you saved, tomorrow and next year would be better. We had a thing called hope. That's what's missing today. And I saw people going from poverty to a lifestyle beyond their parents' wildest dreams, housed, off, educated, and getting a chance in life under, first of all, the Labour Party, and then the National Party of the 40s, 50s, 60s, and 70s. And then it all changed with this new breed. And today, it's the haves and the have-nots. And if you look at the incomes that you're making down here, then there's something awfully going wrong. Because your income is not matching Parnell, Wellington Central, or Ponsonby, or dare I say Epsom. Excepting what you're doing, and they're not doing down those other places, is you're driving the export wealth that keeps this country going. You're in the top half of the income wealth creators in this country, sending products offshore to bring back for the family in New Zealand, but they're getting the money and you're not. Everything's upside down here. And it's the same up north. My electorate is regarded as one of the most poverty-stricken electorates in the country, in Northland, excepting we're in the top half of the export creators. So how come we're down the bottom? But then again, I was down in Invercargill the other day. I never saw one Maserati in the main street. Not one. Not one big Bentley either. No big Mercedes either. Not one on the main street. And yet down there, there's 3% of the population and 80% of the exports, and they're not getting their money back, and nor are you. We didn't drive all this way down today, look at all those farms without realising that's wealth creation we're looking at. And it goes for the forestry and everything else. Excepting you're not getting your share back. And people like David Seymour and Epsom, remember him, don't you? That's the one-man band that gets on TV and radio ad infinitum with his silly ideas about how the economy should be run and ignores you. Hasn't got a branch in anywhere in the rest of the country at the moment. My point, ladies and gentlemen, is it's time for the people in the province and the regions to understand that they have been sidelined, marginalised and left out. And your power company is a good example. And so's your hospital. Remember when you were told by Shipley and Bolger, anybody more than an hour away will have the same services from the bigger hospitals that is, they'll have the same services they always had. And you haven't got that, have you? No. Nothing like it. Why, they can't even get the accounts right. Under Coleman, the Minister of Health, the DHB is underfunded here. Could he work that part out? And they're seriously they don't have the services that you used to have. This used to be a centre of New Zealand one time, going back in the 50s and the 60s, but not now. But then again, who's your local MP? Does anybody know? Who? Well, his name might be McKelvey, but they don't call him Dynamite down in Wellington. When's he last stood up for you? Well, then you must be tigers for punishment, because you keep on voting for him. You don't? Well, you're going to have to make a commitment in this campaign, vote for my guy. And vote for New Zealand First. They have had all these years to do all these things, and here we are, all this time on, it's 2017, and they're saying that, and look at their holdings, you know what they got in their holdings? Delivering for New Zealand. They don't say what. But then again, the other party's got a bit of a problem. Theirs was a fresh approach. That was yesterday, but today is going to be, I don't know. And then the other party, the one that wants to go into a government with Labour, even though they can't add up, and don't remotely make 40, let alone 50%, they're saying that we are greater together, or great together. They don't say great at what? But my point, ladies and gentlemen, is if you're going to fall for delivering for New Zealand, when I come down here and I see roads